Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Anonymous Hedgehog podcast. My name is Maya,
And my name is Rich.
and we'll be your host. So, the topic of today's podcast is if you could live forever, would you live forever? And I guess, should you live forever? And so, my view on this has always been like, I would want to live forever. I remember in, I think, elementary school, we read this book. I don't know if you read it, called Tuck Everlasting.
I haven't.
So it was basically about this. I think it was about this girl who discovered this spring or whatever, and like this spring could make her live forever. But then there were these group of people who had drank from the spring and had lived forever, and they were telling her like, "Don't drink from the spring. It's really a curse." But then so in the end, she ended up not drinking from the spring, and then she died just like a normal person. But I
Yeah.
always found that super puzzling, even as a kid. It's just that, because if I were given the choice, it would be, like, a no-brainer for me. Like, I would for sure want to live forever. What about you?
Well, let's like define the terms first. So like,
Okay.
is it like I take a potion and then I never age from this point on? Or is it like I live forever, but every year I get older and weaker?
I guess, like, you do age. I guess, like, in, like, a biological sense, I guess you would age, but you just age extremely, extremely slow. So, like, for example, by the time you're 100, you look like you're, like, 25.
I see. And then by the time I'm like, I don't know, like 10,000 years old, I look
Yeah.
like I'm 50.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I'm still aging, but it's just so slow. But also like that raises an interesting
I guess that's
question.
not, like, living forever. That's just aging slowly.
Yeah, because
I guess there's a difference between like immortality and just like living for a long time.
yeah, because at that point, like if you're living forever, then your aging ultimately has to stop. You can't be aging just
Yeah.
slowly because that implies that at some point you are going to reach.
So I guess
like
for immortality wise, let's just do it like just for the like thought experiment. Let's say like we lived forever just the way we were right now. Like our age and our like whatever.
I see. Well, then that brings up the question of can you change things about yourself? Like if you work out, can you still?
No, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, like can you like get a six pack or whatever? Like can
Exactly.
you get buffer and like
I think
I
you
feel like-
can.
yeah, no, I don't think like immortality, like if it were possible, I don't think it would bar like you like working out and like changing your like, you know.
Yeah, and like plastic surgery and stuff would be much bigger thing then too, and it would make sense. So yeah, okay, let's just assume that. Based
Yeah.
on that, like I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't want to live forever. But then at the same time, like
Exactly.
right now, and I think you always see like old people that are like in senior homes and stuff talking about like, oh, like any minute now I'll be gone. And it's like in kind of a hopeful way, which leaves me thinking like what is so bad about life that you want to die? And then you realize like, oh, well, all of your friends are gone and your body doesn't work like it used to before. And you're not working a job anymore. You don't have much to do. Your kids aren't really talking to you as much. Your parents are gone. Your brothers and sisters are dying. Like, yeah, you want to die. But if I took that potion and all the people around me took that potion too, then none of that's changing. So I feel like that would solve that problem. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that problem would be solved?
Yeah, I think it's just like the difference between like just you living forever and kind of just like the whole human race being able to live forever. Like, I guess in isolation, but even for me, at least, like, even in isolation, if it was just me living forever, I feel like I would choose that still.
In
mean,
isolation.
Yeah, but I guess I can't say just because we're at such a young stage in life. I remember I watched the movie like The Age of Adeline, and it's the same premise basically. This girl like lives forever, and then like it's so weird because like her daughter was like portrayed as like an old lady and she was still like a young person, and it was kind of odd, I guess like having your kids die before you, right? And then like she went through a bunch of pets because her pets would always die. And like, I mean,
I think
like,
that becomes at that point you want to die because like at that point, and also it's like you're constantly gaining new knowledge, but the people on Earth have always limited amounts of knowledge. Like it's like saying you're a college student and I'm sending you back to fifth grade and you have to stay in fifth grade. And the fifth graders will change every time, but you will continue to get more and more like college degrees, but you have to stay with the fifth graders. Because it's like the longer you stay on Earth, I feel like the more experiences and knowledge you will gain. But the people around you will just keep on restarting from the same zero level knowledge, which would get frustrating because it's like you can't relate to them anymore.
Oh, yeah, I think I get that. But I think, like, the thing about humans is that we kind of pass on, or like knowledge, if that makes sense. Like our next generation kind of builds on top of the previous generation. Not in the sense in an individual level, but on a societal level, like the next generation will always build off the previous generation's knowledge. So like not everyone starts from scratch, or like, I guess a person starts from scratch, but like on a societal kind of knowledge level, for example, like our knowledge of science or like astronomy or physics or whatever, like that stuff doesn't, I guess, restart. So I think like if you were doing research in like that kind of field, I remember seeing this graphic that's like, that's what makes humans different from like rats, for example, because rats, like they don't have like a collective knowledge base that keeps building, but like humans, like the previous generation and then like the next generation builds off of that. So I would say like if you're in, I don't know, because like
Let's just stop. Let's just talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because that concept itself, I feel like we could do a whole episode on that.
Uh-huh.
Just the fact that, like, generationally, we've been helping other generations without even realizing it. Because it's not like we reset or anything. So I guess you're right. Knowledge does keep passing on. And let's say I was a lifelong inventor. Like, all the technologies I deal with, the people around me will constantly know of because... like they will just be educated in that. So I think my question to you then is like, if we had two societies side by side, there were human civilizations, and one of them was the way we work, where you die after 100 years, and the other one was it's the same set of people from start to finish, and there is no finish. Which society would have created the electric car first?
Well, that's kind of interesting because at the same time, there's like a benefit to like a fresh mind or whatever approaching a topic. Like, but at the same time, like I think about this too. Like, if you're a famous like scientist, and then like let's say you die, you have to kind of like the person who like succeeds you has to like retrain. You know what I mean? Like they have to start from scratch, and they can build off your ideas, but it takes them, let's say, like 20 years to learn what you had already known, and then they can start like, you know, like discovering new things and building off of your achievements. I would say, I don't know, I would say the society that has the same people.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I'm stumped too, because it's the same, like the pro, and if we like literally made a T-chart and said pros and cons of never dying, just purely society wise, not at the individual, because I feel like everyone thinks about this on the individual level. But in like an aggregate, like, will society benefit from it? And like the pros would be the people who are like studying and innovating will never lose their knowledge base and therefore be able to innovate at an exponentially higher rate. The con is that it's the same people stuck in the same mindset, stuck in the same research fields. Like, let's say we're innovating, like same example, like electric cars. I'm not going to think about like making a flying car next, because all my life I've been making an electric car. So I think people would get so specialized in the things that they do that they forget entire new industries that could have emerged.
Yeah, I feel like I sort of agree with that, but at the same time, the reason that I've always wanted to live forever is just like I have a bunch of different interests, and I've always wanted to explore all of them, and I know like realistically in my lifespan I can't go into like all of those fields, right? Like I can't become a doctor, and I can't become a lawyer, and I can't become a scientist all at the same time, right? But I feel like I feel like humanity, like we have an ability to like kind of imagine things without them actually existing. Like, you know, like flying cars don't actually exist right now, but we can still imagine it. And there are still people, I assume, who I guess would try to invent that thing. So like, I don't think you have to have experience to kind of come up with a new idea. Like we have ability to imagine things that don't actually exist yet.
That makes sense too. You can imagine things that don't exist. I was watching a documentary on Elon Musk, and like with the Tesla, like yeah, there were other companies trying to make electric cars, but what set him apart was that like he didn't have a car company beforehand. Like this was like he was the first one to turn cars into more of like a software product than like a hardware product, with cars getting software updates and things like that. And the people that had the resources to do that, like let's say Ford Motors, they were so specialized in their existing industry already that they wanted to just like continue to make their Ford cars at the best they could. But it took like a new person with like a new vision to come in and just create that new industry.
Yeah, no, I think that new kind of vision thing is something that you will probably miss if you create a society with like, I guess, the same people. Because like if you think of like any field, like there are some people who are just genuinely just gifted, like Albert Einstein, like whatever. Like no matter how much you study, no matter how much knowledge you kind of obtain, I doubt that you could, create like go to the level of genius as like Albert Einstein, right? Like even like I could spend 100 years studying and I probably wouldn't have come up with like special relativity, So yeah, I think kind of as a human society, we do benefit off of that kind of like the diversity of like mindset, diversity of like thought that comes with each generation.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned Albert Einstein, because like it also I guess has to do with motivation, because 100 years from now, will I be motivated to be innovating at the level that Einstein did at 20 years? I feel like we're just more motivated when we're younger. And this goes back to the question we discussed yesterday about like, if I'm starting a company at 70 years old, is it worth it? Like, yeah, I mean, at best, I still have like around 30 years before I die. 30 years, anyone would say that's enough time for a company. But most people wouldn't really advise a 70-year-old to start a company. And I think maybe it has to do with like motivation and energy. And I wonder if motivation and energy would die down even if physically you're still at the same level.
Well, I feel like I sort of disagree with that, because I think that the reason we lose motivation when we're 70 is because we know we're going to die. So like, yeah, like I feel like if I knew I was going to stay like the same age, or like, for example, if I knew I was going to stay 25 for the rest of my life, then like, yeah, I mean, I would have like, I would say that I would have less motivation than a 25-year-old would if they only like lived 100 years, but more motivation than like kind of on average, I would have more motivation, if that makes sense. Because like right now, I feel like with our lifespan, our motivation like highly fluctuates with our age, right? Like at like 25, we're highly motivated, and it just like it drastically decreases as we hit 40, 50, 60. But I feel like if we live forever, it would kind of be more like stable. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't like fluctuate as much because we don't have that like time restriction.
I see. That's interesting. Yeah. You also mentioned like how you're interested in a bunch of things, like things like from law to physics, totally different fields. And if you lived infinitely, like would you focus like half your time on law and half your time on physics, or would you focus one field to specialize in? Because I think the answer to that question also really matters, because if everyone decides to just spread their time out based on all of their interests, because now it's possible, because no matter how many interests you now have time to work on them. Like that might also slow down society's progression, because at some point you need some specialization.
I think if I were to like live forever, I would probably just pick one to start off with, and then when I kind of get bored with that field, I'd probably switch to another field. Because I was actually just discussing this with my parents last night. I was just like, oh, like I have a lot of passion for a lot of these fields, but it's actually like it made me really sad that I knew that I could only pursue one of them realistically, right? Like I could only pursue one of them to the expertise that I wanted to be at. Like So I think that I would just like, I would start off with maybe like become a scientist. But then when I say like, oh, maybe I hit like a dead end or like I just feel bored with my career or something, then I would like, I could just switch professions and like I wouldn't, I wouldn't run out of time.
I see. That's so interesting. Yeah, like I know we talked about this earlier about how like you have a lot more interest than I do. Like for me, I'm very like restricted into STEM, and I guess also like public speaking. I really enjoy public speaking, but like I don't know, things like writing and like like I enjoy reading, but like other liberal arts humanities subjects just don't spark the same interest in me. And so I wonder if I studied STEM fields for my infinite life and then I eventually got bored of them, then what would I do because I'm not interested in other fields?
I feel like you would find other interests as you get older. But I feel like this also brings up an interesting question. Like when you were like it would I feel like living forever would basically like it would fundamentally change the way that I make decisions. If that
How
makes
so?
sense. Because
How?
like so yesterday we were talking about like, oh, like the opportunity cost of pursuing an interest versus another one. And like I feel like if I knew that I would live forever, I feel like the sense of urgency would almost be gone. So like this is like kind of what I was going back to, like our motivation kind of being more stable versus like fluctuating with age. Like now, like I feel bad for like, for example, like if I sat on my phone scrolling for like 3 hours, I would feel pretty bad after because I'm like, wow, I just wasted 3 hours like doing absolutely nothing. But I guess like if I knew I had infinite time, I wouldn't feel the like I wouldn't feel bad. I'm just like, oh, whatever. It's just like 3 hours. Like I have infinite numbers of hours left in my life, so like I can waste it doing whatever I want.
That's kind of unsettling to me.
Yeah.
Knowing that your time is worthless just means that you are worthless.
Knowing that your time is worthless? I don't think that means that you are worthless, but like yeah, I guess oh, that's so funny. Like you bring up your time is worthless. Like the I feel like it's a cliche to say like when you're in a meeting, like I know your time is very valuable, but like your time would actually be worth nothing. That's so weird.
It's
Like
genuinely worth nothing. And I fundamentally think like if your time is worth nothing, then you are worth nothing because you can do whatever whenever. And this brings up an interesting point of like we just desire like gratification. Right now, we desire long-term gratification because
yeah.
we know that's best for us in our like 100 years lifespan at best. But like if we were infinite, then there's no downfall to like taking cocaine or like doing heroin or like literally speeding to like 200 miles per hour at all times and seeking that thrill. And the more of a thrill you seek, like the less you're going to be interested in doing research or like writing an essay.
Oh, that's so true. Like if I knew I physically couldn't die, like I would just jump off a plane just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Right? Just that's so true. Yeah, like if you know that like I guess this brings up interesting like if immortality did exist, like would drugs actually like would health be like a thing? Would medicine even be a thing? You know what I mean? Like is like
I think drugs would be a thing because they just change the composition of your
but like
brain.
for example, like would medicine really cuz like would diseases even matter? Like would you like you know
Well, I mean, you can live forever but still be sick, or you can live forever and like still like you could have an amputated arm or something like that.
yeah, but I guess the medicine would just kind of be like a smaller field. But like yeah, like if I knew that if like drugs couldn't like kill me or something, like yeah, I would take drugs. Like that's like just, why not?
Yeah.
Right? There's literally no down. Yeah, so I think it's the whole point. Like there is no opportunity cost because we have like unlimited resources, right? Because when
Yeah.
we make decisions now, like we have an opportunity cost of not pursuing something else, but like that just completely disappears when we like consider the fact that we could live forever.
Yeah. And like yeah, exactly. Like logically speaking, why wouldn't you jump off a cliff? Like right now,
Yeah.
if I told you to jump off a cliff, you'd have a million reasons why you shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
No, because you want to like get married when you're older. No, because like you want to live past like
Yeah.
50. No, because your family cares about you. No, because blah, blah, blah. If I told you to jump off a cliff and you won't die, then yeah, you will, because that's a crazy experience. And your
Yeah.
time is worth nothing. So you might as well experience everything, which also begs the question, if your time is worth nothing and you do experience everything, then doesn't everything turn bland?
Yeah, I was thinking of that too. It's like these experiences that we think of like jumping off a cliff, they wouldn't be so exhilarating anymore. Because like the appeal of something like skydiving is like, you know, it's kind of like the fear of death, you know, like even though you likely won't die, it's like kind of the possibility like you're like this close from death because your parachute fails and like that's it for you. But like if like you're right, like everything would kind of just be so subdued because like jumping off a cliff wouldn't have that same thrill because like there's no danger to it.
Oh, it wouldn't have that thrill. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is very, because I always thought that when you jump off a cliff, like the thrill comes from the fact that you're in the air flying down at like 100 miles per hour. But that's not the thrill. The thrill comes from knowing that you're about to die, but you're
Yeah.
not about to die. So the thrill goes away. Well, I don't know. Would the thrill go away? Like, I feel like parachuting would still be fun, even if you know that it's not possible to die.
I feel like it wouldn't, just because, like, for example, like when you go on a roller coaster, your heart is beating fast because, like, you're scared, right? Like, you have so much adrenaline. It's because
You're like, you know, you're not gonna die though.
you know you're not going to die, but like your bodily response comes from the fact that like you in your brain, but your like body doesn't know. You know what I mean? It's kind
So
of
you
like that
think that your
disconnect.
body would start to know, like you would instinctively know it's not possible to die, and therefore thrills would not meet the
Yeah.
criteria anymore.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess we can never know until
Uh-huh.
until we actually develop technology to live forever or something.
So I saw this interesting, like this kind of like a different topic, but I saw this interesting view of death. I mean, I watched this YouTube channel called CGP Grey. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but like he's pretty famous. But like he he was asked a question like, oh, if you could like if you could live forever, would you? And he was like, yeah, and like I would, like no question, because he was saying something like death, like we have this view of death as kind of like a natural part of being human, but he was saying like biologically death is actually just a defect in human DNA, like because I don't know if like you probably learned this in biology class, like the reason we die is because like the telomeres at the end of our DNA start like decaying and stuff. And so he was saying like, yeah, that's a defect in like the human genetic material. It's kind of like a disease, like,
Oh, really?
you know. Yeah, and so he was saying like there is a way to, like, theoretically, like you can cure that. And so I think our view of death like fundamentally is so interesting because like, you know, like we view death as just like very natural. It's a natural human process, but it's weird to think of like death doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, it's flawed. I think there's so many fundamental instinctive values that have been either instilled within us by society or just biologically coded into us that we think are normal. Like even regular diseases that we get with
Yeah.
the flu. Like I think that's so normal. It's like, oh, like he has the flu. But it's not normal. You're not supposed to have the flu.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I like this comes brings up an interesting question about like biology. Like if we lived forever, like we wouldn't be able to evolve. Like evolution wouldn't happen for humans as a species.
Do you think we're gonna evolve?
Well, I think we have. Like, I mean, like just humans as a species, I think we have like been evolving like the past like you know, like thousands of years. Like if you think of like people, like we don't have like some people are born without wisdom teeth, for example, and some people are born like without like a tailbone, things like that, and without an appendix. I think like those are things like all like evolutionary things, you know, like because
I
wisdom teeth
see.
we don't have like the reason that's why the reason our like teeth have gotten smaller because we don't need to chew as like hard things anymore. I think we have been evolving, but like if we were to live forever, like there would be no evolution because evolution relies on like the next generation.
Right, but society would be progressing in an even faster rate, so there'd be an even greater need for evolution. So I think what would be interesting is like there would be a whole industry that would open up solely meant to modify humans.
I feel like this. Okay, like so. Let me ask you this question: like, if you live forever, would you still have kids?
That's a question of overpopulation.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's one about overpopulation, and also too, like because like I guess the appeal of having kids is like you leave your mark on the earth, right?
But
But
there's
like,
no appeal to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like
Is it even
gone.
like interesting to you now? Like
Yeah, I
would you
don't.
even want
I
to?
would like. I mean, I say that I would still want kids, just but like I guess I don't know, like the way that you think would completely change, and also like I was thinking like if everyone had kids, like we would just be overpopulated. Like,
Yeah, I don't think I would want them. And honestly, there's so many ways this whole scenario could fail. Like for example, going back to like the thrill seeking part of us. Like if things like parachuting and like jumping off buildings doesn't give you a thrill anymore, then you're going to find a thrill by putting yourself in danger of other people because now you can't put yourself in danger of society of nature. You can't be in danger of death, so now you have to be in danger of getting in trouble, which means that people will actively commit crimes just for the thrill of getting caught by society doing that.
oh yeah, no, that's true because like if like for example, if you were to I don't know, like kill or rape someone. I guess you couldn't kill someone, but if like you rape someone or you steal something, like going to prison for 20 years is like nothing.
Oh,
Right? Like that literally makes no difference to you. Like you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna take a 20-year break and just like, sleep in prison or whatever and like read these books. Like,
yeah, even going to prison for 1,000 years makes no difference because we
yeah.
already established earlier that your time is worth zero,
Uh-huh.
nothing, and that's hard to
Yeah.
wrap your mind around because like you think like, oh, okay, at least 10,000 years would be worth something to you. No,
Yeah, it's
ten
not.
thousand years is zero. Everything is
Uh-huh.
zero because you live
Yeah.
infinitely, which is so interesting. Because to me, like you tell me go to prison for like 1 month, and to me, that's like that would be the end of my
Yeah.
world. Like what,
Yeah.
a whole month
Yeah.
going there for 10,000 years. That's well. That also brings up an interesting question of like, what about torture? Like if you torture a prisoner for 1 year, does that make a difference to them?
If you torture them for 1 year. I feel like that's an interesting question because you were saying like I feel like this is getting to like weird territory, but you were saying like that like you would seek thrill from like disobeying society's rules. I feel like you would almost seek thrill from like something like torture too. Like I know this sounds like really weirdly sexual,
Oh no,
but
you
I feel
would,
like
you
like
would.
self-harm, those things would be like thrilling, right? Because you
Because
have to seek
you
thrill
lose
from somewhere.
control. Because
Yeah.
when you live forever, you have too much control. You have
Yeah.
control over everything. You can do whatever you want. You can like go out, commit crimes, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Repercussions mean nothing to you. You have
Yeah.
control over the world. It's like everyone is their own king now.
Uh-huh.
But the only thing you don't have control over is when other people exert their control over you. So people are going to, yeah, you're right. People will want to
Yeah.
be tortured.
That's like it's so weird. Oh my god.
And
That's
we
so
see
weird to think
there's
about.
people with that kind of behavior even in our lifetimes, which makes me
Yeah.
think like maybe the reason why people like that exist is because they already believe that their time is worthless. So to them, they're already stuck in that mindset, even though that mindset isn't justifiable.
What do you mean like they believe their time is worthless?
Like like for a person, I don't know the term for it. There's definitely a term for it who like wants harm to themselves.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they're under the impression for whatever reason that like they're invincible. I know most teenagers think they're invincible, which is why teenagers are rebellious because it's like, oh, I already have control over everything. Like I'm not going to die, so I might as well
Uh-huh.
be rebellious. But like this case is even more advanced. It's like you're not only invincible, but you also are under the impression that you're just never going to die, even in the future once you're not a teen. And that is a very dangerous mindset, because that causes people to want to harm themselves, because that's the only way they're going to get a thrill.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea, like, yeah, no one can hurt you. Like, yeah, you feel like no one can hurt you. So, like, you seek thrill from, like, other people, like, physically harming you.
Yeah. You think no one can hurt you, but you know it's possible. So when it happens, it's thrilling.
Yeah, no, I think that, like, if, like, immortality were a thing, I think, like, society, like, we would see a lot more of those people, because it's almost like, I think what it is, it's like almost that pain. It's like, it makes you feel like you're vulnerable, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it makes you feel like alive again. You know, the people who, like, they do skydiving, they do like cliff diving. They say that it makes them feel alive, even though they're like on the brink of death. And like, that's so interesting, right? Like, you putting your life in danger makes you feel alive. And I think that's the same thing that like pain does to you, right? Because it reminds you that you're human.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm definitely going to be thinking about this all day. But with that, it's been like 30 minutes, so I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah, thank you guys all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.